Okay, so episode 5, part number 4. I had one thing to say first, but we're going to be talking about the Dems, the Democrats, the left, or whatever you want to call us. The first comment I was going to make leading into that, maybe not related, but expectations. I kept thinking we're going to see shit in terms of like higher prices and things not on the store shelves and stuff. And instead, we're seeing people taken off the streets. I wish we were seeing higher prices. Okay, enough said on that. Mm-hmm. So, to the Dems, it feels like we're losing our leadership, or at least that, and I don't mean that like we have no leadership, but the people in the positions to really do anything are backing down when we need them the most. That's what it feels like. Specifically talking about Chuck Schumer, of course.
Right. Okay, so I have a couple different thoughts on this.
Sure.
Now, the first point you brought up was that, you're talking about the economic factors that could be involved in it. I think in our first episode, I was like, yeah, I'm not even worried about that. Like, look, there's going to be so many different things that are going to, determine those things that I think in the short run, we could soon, but the way that's going to all play out is a whole different thing that's not even an issue because of the much bigger issues at play,
right,
like you're talking about now. And that had me worried from the beginning, like, okay, economics, whatever. This is what's going to really concern me.
And unfortunately, you were right.
And my point was, economics was never the issue. The issue was fascism.
Well, because the economy actually was doing pretty well. That's part of why it wasn't an issue.
It wasn't an issue. They made it an issue that didn't exist to Republicans who are too stupid to realize that it was getting better.
Yeah.
And that gas, and why they kept on bringing up gas and eggs, which has nothing to do whatsoever with any policy anyone's made in 10 years. Like, eggs, there was a flu. There was a bird flu, of course. It's supply and demand.
For the most part, there are little tweaks. Like some of the tariffs on Canada could affect gas prices, and the fact that we got rid of a large part of the CDC could affect the.
But that's later down the road.
Yeah,
I'm talking about
generally
before the election.
Before the election, right?
I don't even talk about this in the future.
Right.
That could in the future. Who cares?
Yeah.
I'm talking about before the election.
But before the election, you're absolutely
right.
This
whole idea that this was economics was a joke. And that was never about economics for these people. They try to make it that way to convince themselves.
But it's because they really didn't have a clue. I mean, like, okay, I'll just say it. And if she happens to watch it, fine, whatever. My sister, we were having this argument and she was like, that's because inflation is over 21%. Inflation has never been over 21%. It was at like 9% when it was really high. And when it was like about 20, that was back with Reagan. Like they're just throwing out these weird ass numbers.
Well, there's nothing wrong with saying inflation's however high it is.
Maybe, no, but it wasn't true.
But let's just say it wasn't, but it was, because look, certain things have gotten ridiculously overpriced.
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with inflation. That was price gouging. You can't call price gouging inflation. When the corporation, the companies, and everyone else, and they're still raising prices. That has nothing to do with supply and demand and economics as we understand them. It's called price gouging. So you can't call it inflation. You call it regulations that used to be in place that are now being dismantled that didn't allow them to do shit like that, and now they can. And they'll charge you any fucking thing they want, and then they'll blame the Democrats. Yeah. So that's what's happening. So let's not even talk about it. Let's just move on.
Before we get back to the Democrats, I have one quick observation, and I don't have a theory on it right now, so it's just an observation. There's some weird ass shit going on with pricing right now in the U.S. And it on the surface it doesn't look bad, but anytime you notice things coalescing, it's time to get a little bit worried. So like gas prices in this city, for example, normally you drive a block away, 2 blocks away, 3 blocks away, the price of gas changes. Recently, it's been the same within pennies, and that scares me. And then the same thing's been happening with like certain soda prices across different.
That could suggest that there's some kind of talking to each other.
It's almost
price fixing.
Price fixing. I don't know. Not the biggest thing in the world. I just wanted to throw that out there. Let's move back on to dumb
This whole thing about, just back to my gas and eggs. Gas, nothing to do with any policies.
Right.
Eggs, nothing to do with any policy. This had to do with supply and demands and all these other things that are outside the control of anything that any of these fucking people have done. Everything else, yes, things are going up in price. I think it's disingenuous for you to say that it didn't. Yes, things went way up. Things went way up for me.
Well, no, I didn't mean that they didn't go up. They didn't go up by as much as this person was proposing. That's what I was kind of saying.
I would say that my expenses went up probably over 20 to 30% in the last 2 years.
Okay,
yes.
well,
I mean, I can't, they probably have. I'm not going to say it hasn't.
Okay.
But I say it's because of price gouging. It has nothing to do.
Yeah.
Well, they should have went back down after the pandemic when things started getting back to normal.
Right.
So when you have high,
Except that certain things like the cost of housing don't tend to go back down. That's part of the problem.
Well, it all depends on like I said, this is such a discussion that goes so deep that
right.
It's not hitting the fundamental core issues that we're dealing with, which is fascist oligarchs and
which is what we were trying to hit on by talking about the Democratic leadership.
So to me, the whole concept or talking points involving economics is a sidebar. Okay, so anyways, and even when Carville comes in, it's the economics, and I'm like, dude, you're kind of right, and I understand what you're saying,
but only kind of.
But because you're neoliberal, but you don't understand the inherent, because you can how many years have you been showing them the facts, James Carville? And they still vote Republican, but you say it's still about the economics? Yeah, they voted for your boy. Why? Because he was a Southern white dude who was a neoliberal, sucking the tit of the capitalist system. Look at the stuff he passed that totally ended up bankrupting us later on. So yeah, he's kind of missing the point. Yeah. I'm on his side, and he totally lambasts these dudes on Fox when he just whips out the facts and destroys them on the economics. But has it changed a thing on these people? No, it never has. They're not voting about economics. You think they are, but they're not. It's not about the economics. But okay, back to our point. What are Democrats doing?
Right.
Yeah, there's there's Bernie Sanders and AOC and who else?
Jasmine Crockett.
And Jasmine Crockett and a couple of these others.
Jamie Raskin.
Yeah, and outside of that, once again, a bunch of neoliberals, and we talked about this, I think, last week. They just think they can still play this game. Game's over. Like, you're not playing with Schumer, dude, get out of town. Like,
well, and I had somebody complain just a day or two ago saying, well, you just don't understand. Well, no, you don't understand. That we're in a lose-lose situation.
Yes.
And because we're in a lose-lose situation, the one thing that we cannot give up is our dignity, and that's basically what he did. Like, you do not hand the opposition everything they want and then claim that is a win. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
I mean, we're going to lose either way, but you have to at least put forth the appearance of a fight at the very least.
Yes.
And we've stopped doing that. I mean, as the heads of our party, and I know more and more Democrats who are like, oh, I'm not a Democrat anymore. Well, unfortunately, there are only two parties. You kind of still are. Sorry, but
yeah, and here's the splitting that's happening. There's the one who, and I think it's a larger portion that some people even are acknowledging, is the ones that are just like, this is not progressive enough, right? And then you have the Democrats who are going to vote Democrat because they're just like anyone else and they vote Democrat no matter what, right? And then you have these people who are, and I think this is the small fraction, the very, very small fraction, that are like, well, I kind of like some of these ideas and I'm not really as cruel as a Republican, and, I'm on the fence, and sometimes I vote Democrat and sometimes Republican based on the issue.
The kind that we take because we need numbers, but otherwise fuck them.
Right.
Yeah.
These people. Okay. Yeah. But I think they're smaller than they think. So they're like, well, let's appease to the middle. No, these people are too small to matter. Yeah. These people who you're appeasing to the middle are so fickle and stupid that you can't rely on them for jack shit. If we would have went, look, if Obama would have went balls out, like Trump is doing right now, right? As a Democrat with progressive issues, none of this shit would be happening. Second, if they would have went with Bernie instead of Hillary, who was an extremely flawed candidate, not because she was a woman, she was qualified in every other regard. She just had some flawed ideas that were mirroring her husband's that I didn't like. There was a lot of things going on with her. It should have been Bernie. They ruined it there, and then Obama sat on his hands. He did try, he did what he could with the Affordable Health Care Act, and that was a good thing that he did accomplish somehow. He squeezed that out somehow, because one guy who had look at the presidents, the two presidents, Republicans who had one shred of integrity and decency lost. Bush Sr., who I disagreed with all his policies, but he said and he meant what he did, and he did it. The same with, not that I agree with these guys, but
at least he stood by what he actually said.
Yes, I respect his integrity. I respect his integrity. Bush didn't mince any words. It's like, oh yeah, we're going there for the oil, basically, because we got to support our way of life. And our way of life is we need this oil. He wasn't mincing words.
That's one of the things that people sometimes not that often, forget about Trump, is even if you claim to agree with him, he changes what he says on a minute-by-minute basis sometimes. I mean, how can do you agree with both of his points? Because they contradict each other. Which version of Trump do you agree with,
Right. I mean, there was a philosophy behind these dudes. And the same with, with McCain. And what they didn't do that the other presidents did that won, and Republicans, was, the only one that won won the popular vote in the last, was Bush Jr., which was very seriously questioned. Yeah. And this last one, which is starting to look questionable too. Otherwise, they always lost the popular vote even when they won. So, and this is going all the way back, man. These guys can't win without cheating. So, my point being is, when the Democrats had a chance to do the right thing, they didn't, because they wanted to appease the middle or stay somewhere in the middle. And some of these Democrats are just Republicans of the 70s.
Yeah.
They're not even progressive. So that's what we're dealing with. Like, the Overton window has shifted so far to the right. And once again, what they're going to say is, well, it's the Democrats' fault because they keep on bringing up trans, or they keep on bringing up...
Except that we don't.
But this is the thing. They say we keep bringing it up. But that's only because they keep bringing it up. But they don't mention that they bring it up when they do things like take away, they take away people's rights. They do it when they start banning and making things illegal. They keep doing it when they, do these things. And then they're like, no, you can't do that. Stop doing that. It's like if you're, somebody's punching someone and then you say, stop doing that. And they're like, why do you keep bringing it up? Why do you keep doing it up?
No,
or then, well, what about the time you hit me 5 weeks ago and it gave me black eye? Oh, I thought we were over that. But you're still hitting me, and you're telling me I keep bringing it up. Well, it's still there. That's why. That's why we keep bringing it up. You're the one bringing it up. Like all this stuff, I just don't want them shoving it in my face. What do you mean? They're not. They keep on getting hit, and they keep on saying stop. They just want basic human rights. Basic human rights. That's all they want, like anyone else. And then you want to deny it from them, and then you say, be quiet. Go sit in the corner and keep your mouth shut, and everything will be all right. Why are you getting so worked up about that? It's just so abusive. And so to think you're going to get to the middle ground because you're not going to defend people who need defending the most, that's how you're going to get to the middle? By giving up all your freaking integrity and morals and values just, and let these people hang to dry so that you can get votes? Come on, man.
I don't know what else to say. I wish I had something else to say about it, but hopefully either something changes in a positive direction or somebody comes up with at least a better analysis of it, because I don't have one right now.
Right, because like I said, when they constantly give this narrative that the far left went too far left, when they took away the Land O'Lakes butter thing, and just all
except that they weren't even responsible for that.
Yes, they had nothing to do with it. These guys are the ones who keep bringing it up and being abusers and bullies. Kurt Vonnegut, once again, I'll bring up his name, is saying it. You know what Republicans are? Bullies. They're bullies in the schoolyard, and that's all they are. And then they have that disgusting. Why do you keep bringing it up? Why do you keep bringing it up? Yeah, we're not bringing it up. You are.
And you're using it as an excuse to ban books. You're using it as an excuse to ban people from using the bathroom. I mean, you're just dumbass shit.
Or using it as an excuse to say that the left has gone too far.
Well, that too, yeah.
They're going too far. They want more than two sexes. They want people to have autonomy and declare whatever they want is what they want. And isn't that exactly what you say freedom is? You hypocrite.
Oh, I know this is really starting to go off on a tangent, so maybe just a minute or two. But the same thing that they were doing just before the election, where they were saying that democracy wasn't a good thing and we're not really a democracy, they're starting to do more and more of that, where they're saying, oh yeah, Russia's good, and this stuff that's freedom of speech and all this stuff. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea after all. I mean, they're coming out and actually saying these things.
Right. Fascism is in vogue right now.
Yeah.
So, that's the thing, is that, look, the mask is off on America now. The core underbelly. Like, you had a great analogy. It was like an alcoholic who was functioning for a while.
Yeah, functional alcoholic. Yeah.
Like, there's an underlying problem, but they're still staggering through life. And now the mask is off. We see what we are. A bunch of exploitive racist look, when the first elections, you know how much of the population of America could actually vote? I think it was like around 6%.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah, like 6% of the people voted.
Yeah.
The white male landowners who actually would get a fucking thing and go vote.
Right.
So that's how our democracy started, okay? And they want to make America great again. That's what they want. 6% of the population voting, a bunch of rich white dudes voting. That's what they're talking about.
Rich white evangelical Christian.
Well, now they introduced those people into
right,
the mix because it helped them, because it was a means of control.
Right.
So bringing in the white nationalists and the Christian nationalists was just to their benefit, because of course, the white nationalists and those people are right on board with their fascism and everything else. But the Christian nationalists, okay, we can kind of work with them. You know, even though we're not Christians, we don't care. We'll hold up a Bible and say we are, but whatever the case is. But you get my point.
Right. I still say that Trump doesn't qualify as Christian under any definition of Christian, but
everybody knows that. I mean, except for these guys.
And again, I say that as somebody who hasn't claimed to be Christian in over 20 years.
I mean, but come on, like anybody who thinks he's a Christian. He's never even been to church, has he?
Well, obviously that one time when the pastor gave him a hard time. So, you know, he's obviously been one or two times. And
then he went and berated her
for saying what really would have come across as a normal sermon anywhere else. On any given Sunday, right. And it was her church. She didn't. They didn't invite her to the White House. He showed up at her church.
And it'd be like going to somebody's house and saying, dude, why, you know, just like parading them. Like, dude, I invited you over here.
So why are you complaining about the curtains and shit? Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
Something my mother-in-law would do. I think something she probably has done, actually.
She has done. Call over and complain. So, all right, so... Oh my God.
Final positive thought for the week, or the start of the week, since most people will start this on Monday.
I don't know, man. Have a good laugh, I guess.
Yeah. Well, this is not a positive thought, but I'm going to put it out there anyways. You mentioned before that, you know, we like music and there were a bunch of good concerts coming through, especially if you live in one of the big cities, etc. So fingers crossed that we don't have any bands that have to be turned aside because of the things that we discussed earlier, because some of that actually happened in the first administration with Trump, and so the likelihood that it could start happening with this one right now, let's just fingers crossed. Anybody that you're planning on seeing, let's all make a happy little wish that they
well, why are you saying they wouldn't show up just because of the political nature of Texas, or?
Well, no, I mean well, there are two possibilities. One, they might choose not to, and
because it's America,
because it's America, and or because it's Texas. But the additional one is, if things keep going the way that we talked about, they might be barred from getting in here. I mean, if they're coming in from Canada or England or wherever,
or I'm not sure they'd be barred, but I would
they might have more than their usual issues getting across.
They might just say, "I'm not risking it."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I wouldn't blame them. But unfortunately, as much as I want to see some of these people, if that happened, or if it does happen, actually, I think to some extent it will happen. The question is, is it like one or two bands that I wasn't really going to see, or is it like everything shuts down? I hope it's not the latter.
Well, I mean, I'm going to go see Paul Simon. I'm sure he's going to play. I don't think.
Well, but he's an American. I mean.
Yeah, and then I'm going to see what's coming after that. Oh, Charlie XCX. She's from Britain.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if she's in America. She might be touring the States.
Well, right now. I was going to say the only thing we've got tickets for is Billy Idol, who technically he was British. He grew up British, but I don't know whether he emigrated decades ago over to here or not. If he did, probably no problem. If he's still considered a British citizen, I don't know. Then I don't know.
Right. Then I have Kraftwerk, like the following day. Then I'm seeing Ministry with Nitzareb and what's the other band?
Die Coops or Die Coops. I'm assuming they're German.
Yeah, they are. Same kind of genre.
Yeah.
Dead Body. electric body. Well, we used to call it industrial new wave in Chicago.
Yeah, well, no, you still do. They're more industrial than EBM. EBM is more of a synth pop variant.
Right, but that's what they called Nitz.
Oh, okay.
But I don't. Yeah, it sounds industrial.
Well, they could fit in between either one. Yeah.
Right. But
I mean, it's like if you
the
look
early stuff like Depeche Mode was definitely more poppy, and so it got real dark.
But
that's after Vince Clarke.
I was going to say, like, The Cure, for example, there are like 5 different labels you could slap on them. You know, goth rock, new wave, dark wave, all this stuff, and it's the same music. It's just different labels. You know.
Yeah, and different variations.
Right.
And offshoots.
Post punk, that was another one.
Right.
Yeah.
That was more my genre than punk, which is I could just never get into that violent. Like to me, that was like dark wave and new wave and industrial for idiots. Sorry if you're a punk rocker. It was just kind of more of a raw, not very cerebral reaction to the insanity of the situation.
Some of it, I mean, Dead Kennedy.
And the whole idea of anarchy is just laughable to me as an adult. Like, anarchy's going to work. Like, get out of town. But hey, for you libertarians and anarchists out there, we can have that discussion sometime. But
no,
I'm not. Look, in a perfect world, anarchy would be nice.
Yeah, but we're not, which is why libertarianism doesn't work.
That's why libertarian anarchy doesn't work because we're human beings. Right. So, anyways, maybe we should leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a very good spot.
Some point we'll probably talk about that. Why I suggest that, in a perfect world, communism, anarchism, libertarianism, they sound good. Can't work. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Okay.